Everybody's got a ranking for Chiefs players, really players in all of the NFL, but Pro Football Focus, ESPN, Jeff's NFL.com, ranking the Kansas City Chiefs position groups and players. So why not? We'll throw our grades in there as well as to how the Chiefs positions rank. We're giving them letter grades for each and every one. We'll also take a look at, like I said, ESPN, PFF, and NFL.com. Did they get it right for where they ranked all these players? We're doing it right now. It's here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, breaking down all of the position groups. I forgot to ask you guys this. How do we want to do it? Do we want to evaluate how they've been graded and ranked by everybody else and then come back around and give our grades, or do we want to do our grades and then see how they compare to what everybody else has done? What do you guys think?
I will go with everyone else's first.
Everybody else's first. Okay, Sam, what's your vote?
Sure. Either way works.
Sure. No, I want to do it totally different. Let's have a we'll rock paper scissors for it and see
a program meeting in the middle of our podcast.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I had intended to ask, but then got busy and things are going on. Life happens, and so you're not quite as quick on the draw as you want to be, and so it goes by the wayside. But we'll go through the other rankings first. Let's start with Jeff Chadiha's NFL Network. NFL.com is ranking, Jeff, the top 100 players, and they have revealed 100 through 21. 21, I think sometime today, I think 21 to 30 came out. There is no Kansas City Chiefs there, which I'm assuming we think we're still going to see Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones in this top 20. I certainly think all three of those guys are going to be there in the top 20. Do you have a problem that, one, do you agree with that? Number two, do you have a problem with nobody else being in that 21 to 100?
Just sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify, the players vote on that list.
Yes. Yeah, the players voted and the NFL.com puts it out there.
Yeah. And so
this is the one that, just sorry to interrupt again, interrupt on the interruption. This is the one Patrick Mahomes went 1, 2, 3, 4 when he got voted fourth after smacking around Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we can all assume now. I don't know if Mahomes will be one based off the season he had last year. I think that's what they go off of when they vote for this stuff, is based on how you're playing. So it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't one, but yeah, all three of those guys should be in the top 10. I'm going to take a leap of faith that maybe Trent McDuffie's got a chance of breaking the top 20.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was an all-pro player. That holds a lot of weight with people. He didn't have the stats, but when you're an all-pro player, you're one of the top 4 players in the league at your position. So I think to have that kind of merit would go a long way. Now, I'm not going to bet my house on it, but he deserves to be in the top 100. That's what I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to make here, that he's good enough that he should be in that group somewhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up cracking that top, whatever, 15 to 20 range.
We got a nomination for Trent McDuffie there, Sam, and you no doubt are looking for Nick Bolton to be in this top 20 as well.
I think we should have. Our first question should have been: is it more likely Trent McDuffie's in the top 20 or out of the top 100 altogether? Because neither one of them makes sense to me. I don't think he's going to be in the top 20. So I think that means he's left off the list altogether, which is pretty ridiculous that he's not a top 100 player because he did have a top 100 season last year. I know the Chiefs area of the list, but I didn't think to do this before. Is that in the top 100? Like, did L'Jarius Sneed appear in the top 100?
Last year, yes, I think he did last year.
Well, I mean, this year does he?
No.
Because we don't consider him a Chiefs player; he's a Titans player, right?
Let me look at it here.
But he deserves to be in the top 100 players as well.
Let me see. It's going to take me a minute because it's a photograph.
Yeah, it's not a little control F that you can do. But I will say, I don't care what kind of year he had last year. Like, if enough players did not vote Patrick Mahomes number one, I mean, that would be absurd if somehow he's left out of
he's
number
not been number one before.
Right.
I think he's been
one time they realized the mistake, and I think every year since, right? The last couple of years he has been number one.
Rodgers was, I think both years Rodgers was MVP, he was number one.
So 2 years ago, coming to the year, Rodgers was number one, or last year?
Whatever the MVP season he came off of, he was one. But yeah, Mahomes I think was one. Yeah, coming off last year, but the year before I don't think he was.
Mahomes. So the last number ones are Mahomes last year, Brady the year before.
Okay.
Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Donald, Brady, Cam Newton, J.J. Watt, Peyton Manning, Adrian Peterson, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady.
So Mahomes has been one twice.
Two of the last three.
So to your original point about, hey, he might not be number one if they're talking about just what happened last year, I'm with Sam. He's the number one player in the NFL, hands down, and it's not even close. And I think it's ridiculous if he doesn't get number one, but there's a lot of petty jealousies that go into it. I think the one thing, if he's not number one, he's going to be very high. We all agree with that. Yeah. I do think the one thing, because L'Jarius Sneed is not unless I missed him, and I don't think I did. I looked for Titans and Chiefs.
I didn't see him. Well,
just scan through real quick, and I didn't see either. I think the one thing that does appear here, because I think you can I think Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, off last year should be in there.
Joe Tooney's got an argument.
Joe Tooney should be in there. I think there are guys like, I don't know if it's position bias or what, but can we agree that maybe everybody around Patrick Mahomes on these kind of things suffers a little bit because it's easy to be like, well, Patrick Mahomes does it all.
Oh, it's not just players, it's executives, it's coaches. I mean, all sorts of people suffer from being able to be promoted, and I mean promoted literally within your job, but promoted as far as just getting promotion too. All kinds of people just because they say, well, you've got that guy.
Yeah. All right. You agree with that, Jeff? That maybe
Well, and certainly. But the point I was going to make about just how this stuff is voted, like it's if they'd be better served to put attach a criteria to this so people understand what they're voting on. They're voting on what happened in the season, not how good the player is. And so if Mahomes goes out and throws 30 touchdowns and 29 interceptions, yeah, he's still a great player, but he had a tough year. Like, he's not going to be the Pro Bowl starter or the first team All-Pro quarterback. So this is the same application in this kind of a vote. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. Doesn't mean he's not still the best player in the league. He just didn't have the best season.
Yeah. And listen, I don't even care what he gets graded as, and I don't think the Chiefs care. He's the best. That's what's there. But I think for the other guys, it kind of matters. I mean, I think, especially with Trent McDuffie contract, talks of about a year away, he'd like to do it. Creed Humphrey, we agree, as we talked about in our last podcast, that he's in contract talks right now about getting an extension. I think all those guys, it would be a nice feather in the cap and something that your agent would certainly like to push across the desk as one of the highlights as to why you deserve to get paid. I don't know. I mean, maybe listen, if somebody could emphatically explain to me how they've got a mathematical formula on exactly how to rank players that play such vastly different positions in the NFL, and you made the case that, like, no, it really is all Pat. Like, I would buy that. If that was the reason why Trent McDuffie's not in the top 100, it's like, no, Mahomes gets leads. I mean, this year's, like, more than any other year, all the defensive guys have a say. Like, Chris Jones has a reason to say I should be top 5. I mean, Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed should be screaming about being top 100. I mean, I think those guys for sure have a big case to be made because that defense has to have good players. Like I do agree. Our buddy Eric Eager, I think, made a great point, and I've quoted it ever since. He was really the one that taught me the lesson that defense is a zero weakness game. You don't want a hole because offenses will exploit it. So better to be good everywhere than be great in a few spots and have a couple of holes. So if you believe in that, which I do, you can be very good on defense without having the best player at any position, right? You just have no weaknesses and you're going to be pretty good. I still find it hard to believe that out of the top 100, which should have 3 per team, that the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion would only have 3 players in the top 100 would seem, again, a little bit off.
So who's more likely, do we think, to be in the top 20 between McDuffie and Sneed? Because I think Sneed got the reputation last year as being the shutdown cornerback. With the All-Pro voting, he was the first guy out. McDuffie gets on All-Pro because they have a slot cornerback specific position. Wow. I think cornerbacks and guys in the NFL in general are going to say very valuable position, but not as valuable as playing on the outside. And Sneed basically finishes 5th. There's 2 guys on first team, 2 guys on second team. He's the top vote getter who doesn't get in. So I could see Sneed being, especially Jeff, like if you see McDuffie being at least still in the mix to be in the 10 to 20 that's going to be released next, I think there's a better argument perhaps for Sneed because he got a lot more attention publicly from people about, hey, the reason the Chiefs defense is number 2 in the league is because they got a shutdown cornerback and an elite pass rusher.
Yeah, I mean, it's a position, cornerback I'm talking about, that the more noise you make, the more love you get. And both those guys are very quiet, go about your business type players. Point. And so, you're always going to lead towards the Jalen Ramseys of the world, the Darius Slays. I'm sure Patrick Surtain is ranked pretty highly. He's not a overly vocal player, but he's a phenomenal player. And so maybe that's part of it too. But it's, again, I'm not betting on him being there, but I'm saying he deserves he deserves to be on the list somewhere. And if he's not on there yet, I would hope he would be in this next group that gets announced.
Yeah, I think Sam makes a great point about Trent kind of playing in on the slot. Does that get you knocked down? Like he was all pro slot. Yeah. He was all pro nickel, basically, is what he was. So does that get you knocked down?
Yeah. Kenny Moore from the Colts is a slot corner. He's been on that list before a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So where do we think the big 3 are going to go? Jeff, where do you got them going?
Oh, I'd say top 10. Maybe Kelce had a tougher year. He didn't have the greatest year. Kelce might be probably 12 to 15, probably 10 to 15. I'll put Kelce at 14, 15. I'll put Jones at 7 or 8, and I'll put Mahomes at 2 or 3.
2 or 3 for Mahomes, 7 or 8 for Jones, and where was Kelce?
Like 14, 15.
15. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned that Kelce didn't have a great year. Jeff's right. But I don't know if the rest of the NFL knows he didn't have a great year because he was more popular than ever before. So I still think
Swift bump.
The great Taylor Swift bump on the NFL top 100 puts him still in the top 5 to 10. I think it's going to be like in that 7 to 10 range. And I think that's about where Chris Jones is going to fall too. I mean, I don't know exactly when they vote on this. I think it's late in the year, right, Jeff?
Late in the year. Yeah, it's not. It's during the season.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm saying is I don't think people were voting thinking Chris Jones needed to play the last game to get to double-digit sacks, and they just look at his influence on the game. And every offensive lineman looks at that guy and says, I can't block that guy.
I think Travis Kelce is going to take a ding. I think Kelce might come in about 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
Maybe even with some Taylor Swift backlash, right? Tired of Kelce. He's got a podcast. He's got the most famous girlfriend in the world. Like, how high do we have to vote this guy? So I think Kelce just barely slides into the top 20. I think Chris Jones comes in about 8, 9. I think Patrick Mahomes is number 1. I think, it depends on when this vote was taken. I assume it was taken after the Super Bowl. And I think because of that,
it's taken before everybody leaves the season. So you got to get guys in the locker room who are still around. So
is it really?
Not voting? Yeah, they're not voting once they leave the building. They do it in the locker room. So they do it like late in the year.
That's a great point. Then he might not. Then who will be number one?
I think the MVP. I think it'll be Lamar probably.
Oh man, that's going to be motivation for the opener.
Opening night. I still think it's going to be Mahomes. I mean, I still think the rest of I just think his track record is long enough.
Yeah, I still think Mahomes too.
I will say, like,
drop passes, interceptions. It wasn't his best year.
It wasn't. And look, when Mahomes plays just good instead of great, it's a topic. It's a topic for us. Like, what's wrong with the Chiefs' offense? And so that was the question all season: was what's going on with the Chiefs' offense? Which it was legitimate. It wasn't what we were accustomed to seeing. But, guys from the outside, look, they're playing on Sundays. They're not watching every game on Sundays. They might look at it and say, this isn't what I'm used to, especially, and I've mentioned it before, he struggled in prime time. That is when all the players are watching the games.
Yeah. Well, and he wasn't all pro this year, right? This past year, right?
Patrick Mahomes.
I don't know if he was all pro or not.
He wasn't all pro. Well, I think it was
Lamar,
and I think either Dak or Purdy was the second team.
Okay, that makes sense.
Dak might be higher than you think.
Yeah, he could be. He could be. We're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've solved them since 1994. Listen, don't risk accidents in your parking lot. Liability in your lot can be a big, big problem. Get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot cuts down on accidents, keeps your parking lot as safe as possible. You don't need your customers, your clients playing bumper cars in the lot. Make a great first impression and a great last impression with a smooth, brightly striped lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete does everything when it comes to parking lots, whether that's the drainage, whether that's resurfacing, whether it's seal coating, building it from scratch. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online today at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Like I said, 30 years, since 1994, they've been solving parking lot problems in Kansas City. Let them go to work for you today. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk a little bit about reaction to ESPN's top 10 rankings. The quarterback got a lot of run. Patrick Mahomes is number one, and everybody voted him number one except for one guy who voted him Josh Allen number one, which was easy to deduce because they said they gave a high and a low, and there was only one guy who didn't vote for Mahomes, and Josh Allen got a high of number one. So, which I don't know if they didn't let guys vote for their own guy or not. I would hope they would have taken that away. It's pretty easy to figure out. Well, Buffalo voted for Josh Allen if they didn't. Yeah. So that was pretty easy. But when you look at the rest of the offense, Isaiah Pacheco, honorable mention. Travis Kelce, number one. Wide receivers, nobody. Nobody in the top 10. Nobody in honorable mention. Nobody else receiving votes. Interior offensive line, Joe Thuney 4, Creed Humphrey 7, Trey Smith 9. No mention whatsoever of their offensive tackles. Did they get it right on offense there, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds. I would take that. Maybe Travis. Again, I'm imagining this is more off the opposite of what I just said about the year they're having, and more about who would you like to have playing for you. That's probably more the rationale behind a vote like this. And so with that, I can see them saying Travis, but, I would say that you've got, George Kittle is in that mix. Trying to think of other tight ends. Hockenson got hurt. There's really Laporta wouldn't have the same kind of numbers. But, yeah, I mean, I could see Travis being one. The other guys make sense. The interior lineman makes sense. No tackle. No wide receiver should be anywhere near a vote like this that they had last year. I don't know. I don't know if Hollywood Brown moves to meter. I think it's legit vote. I think that all that makes sense to me.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? Any of those jump out at you as something you'd argue with?
Not really. I mean, I could see Kelce still being number one. I mean, he had the most yards per game among all tight ends last year, and yards per route run. So I still think there was an argument that he had the best tight end season if it wasn't his typical season. But no, I don't think anyone who's not ranked on that list deserves to be a top 10 guy at their position.
Tell me, here's the interior offensive line. That's where the Chiefs got all the credit. Zach Martin 1, Chris Lindstrom of the Falcons 2, Quentin Nelson of the Colts 3. We okay with that? Then Joe Thuney 4, 5, Joel Bitonio, Cleveland 6, Landon Dickerson of the Eagles 7, Creed Humphrey, Frank Ragnow 8, Trey Smith 9, Elgton Jenkins of the Packers is at 10. That when you hear the other names in there, does anything jump at you on that one? I think if Creed Humphrey's making better snaps, he's higher than that. Because I think to Sam's point, I think he's the best blocking, all-around blocking center out there. Yeah, but I think the snaps are a killer for him.
Yeah, I mean, Ragnow had a really good year for Detroit. You look, I mean, Joe Tooney wasn't as good last year as he had been the previous couple in Kansas City, particularly with the run block. Like elite pass blocker, but kind of fell off as a run blocker a year ago. So I think Chiefs fans might argue that he should be higher, but that's the reason why I think he's probably not.
Yeah. Creed's the guy I'd like. I mean, I get it. I'm not going to be like, you got to put him higher, but I think he's better than that. I think the snaps are a big killer. And I think when your quarterback takes it's one of the reasons why if he has the snaps right, I think that will be improving the receivers and getting it right at left tackle are most important. But your quarterback not having to waste a second and a half looking down at the ground on each play will be a big boost as well. And so I got no problem with somebody dinging him because of that. How about on the defensive side?
Has he ever been asked about that? Not to cut you off, but has he ever been asked about that?
Yeah, we asked him about it this week, and I
did. I asked.
Well, no, I also asked him about playing guard.
Yeah,
and he knew exactly why I asked about playing guard and laughed about it and said he enjoyed it, but he prefers to play center.
It's passive aggressive move, Sam.
Yeah, he always said it was fun. They told him about it, it was fun, and then I was like, yeah, the snaps suck. What's the problem there? That's not what I said. I said
it was inverse order. First of all,
yeah, it was mine first, and then after the snaps, Sam came in with how'd you like guard, right? Snapping. How'd you like guard? I just said to him, listen, snap was a problem at times last year. What do you do in the offseason to try to get it better? And I mean, you want to hear what he said?
We've talked about it so much. Like I've never heard him explain what's happening or anybody ask him about it.
He did not explain what was happening.
He has mastered the 500 level course that Patrick Mahomes teaches on how to speak but say nothing. Okay, here it is. I asked him, I said, the snaps were a problem last year. What do you do in the offseason to try to get them better?
Well, we know who our number one is, right?
Well, sorry. Hang on.
He's gotten older.
Yeah, he got, and he's from Boston now. Yeah. All of a sudden, here it is. I pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, just focus on technique and just getting the reps in, doing it, after a workout when you're tired, things like that, so you can stay focused on the technique while you're doing it.
That's it. I mean, does it sound like a guy who's embracing the problem?
Well, I would be interested actually to go back and watch. Like if there was something that told me he had so many wrong snaps in this game versus this game, like look at his high errors and see if it is games where he's playing more snaps. If the snap issues come later in drives, because he did, like him mentioning, I'm going to work on it when I'm tired. He's saying that that's part of the problem. This is a fatigue issue.
And I will tell you, at least on the Super Bowl, I'm not going to say I'm going to call bull on the whole season. But in the Super Bowl, it was right out of the gates, right? Because we had an early Tony Romo talking about, this is not usual. Problems with the snap again. No, it is usual. And so I think, I won't definitively say, I don't think fatigue is it. I can't tell you I've studied it and seen what it is, but I don't think fatigue is it. Right?
It was the last play of the regulation too. That long drive at the end of regulation. He's equal opportunity with it.
But weren't they claiming like a hand injury or kind of a hidden hand injury? Was that?
That was a rumor that I think was floated by cheerleaders, apologists for Creed Humphrey. Yeah. I don't know who floated it, but it got some traction. I think, listen, we all love Creed Humphrey. I don't understand how, Jeff's not a fan. Like I grew up a fan, but Jeff has no angst towards, anything that's going on with the Chiefs. But, when you're speaking to the masses, the fan base, if you're not telling them everyone's great, they get pissed off. And I'm sorry, but the snaps are a freaking problem. and why people would sit there and try to make excuses for it. If you can go, you can go. It drives me batty. Creed Humphrey's great. I mean, he's in shape. He's a dominant blocker, but he has to fix this. And kissing his ass isn't going to get it done. And I think it's important for the Chiefs to be like, here's guard. Let's step in over here at this line because we can't have you play center if you don't get it done. Because I think it was a way bigger problem for the offense than anybody wants to admit. And I know for a fact I was tweeting it early in the Super Bowl here we go again with the snaps. If they lose a championship because of the snaps, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's hard. Like, I remember a year ago when we're in New York, and it seemed like Juwan Taylor had like a pretty good quarter and a half. Remember, that was like what, a week 5 game.
Yeah.
And so it was one of his first ones. You're like, Juwan Taylor's playing pretty well today. And then he got called for a safety because of a face mask. And you're like, you can't possibly him as a right tackle when you scored 2 points for the opposing team. That's what I feel like how the snap issue is. Like, if you cost your team a third down at one, it's as good as a sack. You know, that play at the end of regulation was as good as a sack, other than the fact that the Chiefs didn't have to have the clock run and worry about the clock running out. But like, that was it. Like, it kills the play at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, how about the defensive side of where the grades came in? Chris Jones, number 1 at D tackle. No one in the top 10 honorable mention or receiving votes at defensive end. George Karlaftis didn't even get a consideration from anybody at defensive end. Competitive position, great athletes there, absolutely. But Khalil Mack is in like honorable mention. Give you an idea of the depth. So there is great depth there because that's a talented guy who had a 6-sack game last year.
Yeah,
I think with the Chargers, and still was just in the honorable mention. Off-ball linebackers, Nick Bolton, number 5. Sam, he's number 5 in the off-ball linebackers. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 5. Nick Bolton. I don't know if you caught that. He's 5th. Safety Justin Reed, honorable mention. Cornerback Trent McDuffie, number 6. Getting some love to go back to our point about the top 100. He gets number 6. Jeff, on the defense, anything jump at you there?
I'm not going to bang the drum for Karlaftis. I feel like when Chris Jones is not a part of the mix, I think he's an okay pass rusher. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think Drew Tranquil has enough name recognition to be that high up on the list. I think he's still vastly underrated by the league. Everybody else, I agree with. You know, it's I believe Bolton should be where he's at. I believe Trent McDuffie should be where he's at. I don't have a problem with it. The other guys.
Sam?
I mean, it seems about right to me. I mean, I think Bolton's a little bit high. I'd still put him probably in my top 10. I think 5's a bit high, but I don't have major issues with the rest of it. I think it's early to put Karlaftis in there. I mean, edge rusher is just a supremely talented position, and I totally agree with Jeff. Like, Karlaftis has a lot of help by a guy that gets double teamed on 75% of his snaps.
Yeah, but so does everybody out there who plays with another good defensive.
No one else plays with Chris Jones. I mean, he gets double teamed at the league's highest rate. Like, like Karlaftis sees a lot of one-on-one matchups.
Okay. And probably good that our buddy Eric Giger, who I'm sure has got his head in film or data or something for the Carolina Panthers, but we know that there would be a knockdown, drag-out brawl right now with him saying Nick Bolton was way too high. Way too high.
Yeah. Well,
like, list 6 through 10. Like, who's right below him?
At linebacker?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to go back to it. 6 through 10. I got so many different things open. Off-ball linebacker. I'll give you the whole 10 just so you.
I think Roquan Smith and Fred Warner top 2, right?
Fred Warner 1, Roquan Smith 2, Matt Milano 3, Patrick Queen 4, Nick Bolton 5, Jeremiah Owasu Karamoa 6, Tremaine Edmonds 7, Mario Davis 8, Dre Greenlaw 9, and Foyesade Olukun.
Oh yeah.
Olukun.
Foyer, right?
Foyer.
Yeah. From
Jacksonville is number 10. Honorable mentions: C.J. Mosley, Levante David, Quincy Williams, Logan Wilson, Zaire Franklin, T.J. Edwards, Bobby Wagner, also receiving votes. Jaden Brooks, Christian Harris, Frank Lavu, Devin White.
Surprised Demario Davis is not ahead of Nick Bolton there.
I am not.
45 years old.
I'm not.
He still was terrific last year.
I know. I'm just making a joke about it.
And I very much look forward to Nick Bolton mentioning you as one of his motivators, Sam, and his gold jacket, Hall of Fame.
I am not going to take like Eric did not pass me the baton for the Nick Bolton hate. I think Nick Bolton's a great player. I just think he plays a non-premium position. And
As a fellow Missouri Tiger,
I don't think his strength is and coverage. I think he's terrific at everything else besides coverage. The league has moved to where coverage might be the top of my list for what I look for in a linebacker.
I think that's a fair point. I do think that's a fair point. So I'm all for I'm all for being able to cover that's for sure. By the way, Northland Injury Law is all for you. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other serious personal injuries. Their attorneys have been serving the Kansas City area for more than 40 years. They don't get paid unless they get money for their client. That's right. They don't get paid unless you get paid. Northland Injury Law, voted #1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. #1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. Don't wait to get compensated. Get compensated right now. If you have a case, text HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222. Again, if you have a case right now, text HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. Call right now. The choice of a lawyer is an important one. Should not be based solely upon advertisements. Text HURT to 22222 to get connected 24/7 to Northland Injury Law. All right, let's press on. Next up on the list, we have the PFF position grades before we get to handing out our own grades. They've ranked them, PFF position rankings. Chiefs offensive line, #7. Anyone, Sam, you got a reaction to that? This offensive line better than that? Or is that right where they belong?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't rank ours based on what the rest of the league as much.
Oh, we did grades,
just grade ours.
We did grades, but I'm just curious.
maybe we could kind of mix ours into the PFF list since we did the position groups. But yeah, I guess I would say Jeff is a great person to ask about the rest of the league's ranking relative to the Chiefs. I don't know if I would know as much about exactly where they should rank in the rest of the league. I will say they're great at pass protection.
All right, let's do this. We'll do our grades, and the PFF is 7. What's your grade for offensive line?
I gave the offensive line a B. And just to give you guys a head, I do have pluses and minuses in my other grades, so it's not A, B, C. I gave them a B. I mean, I think their interior line, they've got 3 of the best guys of the league at all their positions. And they've got major questions at the tackles.
Jeff?
B as well. Yeah, for the same reasons. I don't know what Suamati is going to be. Jawan Taylor is still a work in progress. And the middle 3 are pretty strong.
I think #7's about right, but I think this is maybe one of the toughest position groups to give a grade to. Because they are tremendous guard to guard, as we just mentioned. And by the way, the ESPN grades are based upon personnel people and coaches and people in the league. That's not their writers' grades. That's Jeremy Fowler reached out to all kinds of people.
So it's not as valuable then, since it's not the writers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's not the media. That's right. But I think when you have problems at tackle, you got a complete unknown on the left side, and the right side was jumpy and penalty. Good. That is tough to grade. That being said, I thought Jawan Taylor was pretty damn good coming down the stretch, and I think you got to be good at both tackles. And so the fact that he's a right tackle, I don't think is diminished. I think you need 2 really good tackles. So if you've got 1 tackle that I think's pretty good and was coming on late, 3 great interior people, I give him a B+. Right? I'll go a little bit better than a B because I think they can protect 1 guy, but I think 4 guys are pretty damn good on that offensive line.
I was thinking about this as we went through the rankings. We remember that the Chiefs' first, offensive line, first Super Bowl offensive line was good at the tackles. I mean, Eric Fisher was above average. Mitchell Schwartz was really, really good. They had question marks at the interior. And I was kind of, as I was going through this exercise, since it's the inverse, thinking, would you trade this offensive line for that offensive line and be really good at the tackles?
It is hard. Like I said, if somebody knocked them down and said, look, they're great guard to guard, but really matters is the tackles, I wouldn't spend all day arguing with them. Right? I can see that being an issue. All right, we'll stay with the wide receivers. Stay with the offense, and we'll go to wide receivers next. Okay.
Receiver and tight end, or just wide?
I'm sorry, receivers. Yes. And we did it how PFF did it, just to be able to match up with them. So it's receivers and tight ends. So Travis Kelce gets put into this. By the way, PFF has them 16. Okay, 16. What do you got, Sam?
It's Travis Kelce and Noah Gray get put into this.
Yes, that's one for our buddy Eric Eager again. This is Eager's favorite podcast ever.
Yeah, this is the last one where I just give a straight grade, but I have a B for the receivers as well. And Travis Kelce is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. But I mean, you guys have heard me. When I said on my last podcast, like I think I'm higher than most people on Hollywood Brown. I'm higher, at least. I think we're all higher on this wide receiver group than we were on last year's wide receiver group. So I've got him at a B for that reason. And what'd you say PFF had him at?
PFF has them 16.
16. So yeah, I mean, I guess I would maybe say more like 13 to 14 range.
Okay. Let me predict. I'm gonna predict Jeff. I'm gonna predict Jeff goes C.
C plus is what I'm gonna guess for Jeff.
C plus. Sam nailed it.
There you go, Sam. Okay.
I don't give Kelce as much credit as Sam does for lifting this group up. I think they drag him down. So I think he's still an A minus. I think he was a B plus tight end last year based off what he can do, what he's done. So,
but is that fair? Wait a minute. How can you be a B plus grade based upon your own greatness? Like, so no, he's not.
Travis Kelce. He wasn't great last year.
He was still the best tight end in football, was he not?
Yeah, but I'm breaking it by his greatness. I'm not breaking against everybody else. I'm saying this is what he could be.
But these
grades should be based on the league. I'd like Travis Kelce league wide was an A last year.
Oh, so you're saying compared to everybody else, he's an A?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
okay. I'm saying he's a B plus, and everybody else is like B, C, D. That's what I'm thinking. He's still the best. I don't think he's.
And
well, except for like you're a professor, so I'm starting to get an insight. Is like your class. I mean, do you give out any A's in your class? Do you have a semester where you're like no A's?
Yeah, I grade people based on what they're capable of. I don't think he was an A player because I think he's an A plus player at his best. I don't think who Darren Waller, was an A plus player at his best. So. Like I said, I gave him an A minus. I think he got a B plus season, but everybody else was in that group was a D to F, and I'm not giving a ton of weight to Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown is probably coming in probably a C player, so I'm right where PFF is. I think that C plus is middle of the pack. I think they're a middle of the pack receiving corps.
I won't argue that. I actually toyed around with giving him a B plus, but I didn't want to argue for 10 minutes about giving him a B plus. So I slumped back in my chair and gave him a B. I do think
that is just what Soren's on. That is just what Soren's personality is. Just worried about what everyone else thinks and changes his grades.
No, I really, because I won, and in full honesty, I didn't want to be a complete homer. I think there is potential here. And I'll be honest with you, I was more in the B minus to maybe C plus range, because I think there is some regression from Travis Kelce. I expect that. I expect him to be a little bit older. And Xavier Worthy's an unknown. We've talked about not all their wideouts just jump out and do great. Rashee Rice could be suspended. I think that factors into it, and you ding that a little bit if he's going to be out some games. Hollywood Brown doesn't exactly stay healthy for 16 games on a regular basis, and he's never really lived up to the hype of him coming in. So I think as fans, we always
and Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney are still on the roster. By the way,
then they can't catch.
That's right. That's right. We can't discard those guys. They're still here.
And by the way, not only is Kadarius Toney still on the roster, I absolutely guarantee you he will be on the roster when the 53 comes out. And so all those are issues. And so I didn't want to get caught up and just go. I do think there's upside, and I think some of that upside will be realized. I think Rashee Rice will be even better. I think Kelce will be not vintage Kelce, but I think it'll still be really good. And I've got high hopes for Xavier Worthy. They are so all in on Xavier Worthy. They need to be right about this. So I think it will be better than 16. But I will not waste any time arguing. I don't argue the C plus, because I think C plus is completely fair based upon a lot of factors. And I wanted to go B plus, but I think I was going to be a homer. I am expecting them to be better than what you could grade them off last year.
Jeff's. I mean, you're right. Jeff's grade is fair.
100%.
I first of all, I think Rashee Rice was really good over the last 8 games last year. Xavier Worthy does look good in training camp in a way that I would not have said about some of the last guys. It's such a simple thing, but he tracks the ball well, and I don't know. I'm a little bit in shock that that's like a thing we're grading with NFL wide receivers, but they've just struggled so badly. I mean, McCole Hardman still struggles to track the ball in training camp. You see the difference, even if it doesn't count. You see the difference between Xavier Worthy and McCole Hardman out on the field. So my grade is definitely weighted based on the new guys they have coming in, a step forward from Rashee Rice. That, like, Jeff's grading them a lot based on their performance last year. They weren't very good last year. I mean, they last year didn't even deserve a C+ last year.
No, I'm okay with it. Let's go to running back. By the way, PFF on the running back position ranked the Chiefs 18th, right? Travis Kelce only meant 2 spots better at this. Where do you got the running back grade at, Sam?
Yeah, this was the one that I have them lower than PFF does. I have them at a D+.
Wow.
I do not think that they have answered. Like, this group looks really bad if Isaiah Pacheco gets hurt. And I can't recall the last time the Chiefs went into a season absent the quarterback and tight end superstars and saying, man, if one of our guys gets hurt, what are we going to do? And the fact that it's at a non-premium position like running back, I think makes it all the more inexcusable if they get put in this sort of position where it's like, okay, now you're going in with Deneric Prince and Clyde Edwards-Helaire to play football games. And part of my grade is based on the fact that I don't see Isaiah Pacheco making it through a 17-game season. So that scenario I just outlined, the guy plays really hard. It's a great quality. It also makes it tough to play all 17 games. And I think the scenario I just outlined, they're going to encounter it at some point this year. And I think Pacheco's a good back. He's a good starter. I guess I should say average. I think he's a slightly above average back. But he also does not contribute in the passing game. And when you go through it, they don't just need like an extra running back. They need a very specific type of running back, which is a third down running back. The guys on their roster, which only subtracts Jerick McKinnon from last year, combined for 5 catches for 17 yards for 1 first down on third downs last year. That's it. They had 1 third down catch converted to a first down last year. 2 years ago, they had 0. This group had 0. Pacheco didn't even catch a pass on third down 2 years ago. And I think he's probably going to play a lot of third downs this year. Like, there's a reason that they carved out this role for Jerick McKinnon when he was 45 years old, is because they were like, we need this. And they've just decided this year they don't need it. And I still think they do.
Okay. Jeff?
I was a lot more generous with this group than Sam was, but I still landed on a C. That's only because I like Pacheco. I like what he brings. I think it's a vital part of this offense's success. I think he's probably been an underrated aspect of what they've been able to do in the last couple of years. But I agree with Sam. I think beyond that, it's hard to look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire as anything more than a serviceable replacement. It makes me wonder how they're going to play offense this year, if they're going to veer away from the run and really try to force more deep balls and try to do more things like they did earlier in Mahomes' career. I can't get to D just because I think Sam's added more weight to the potential of injury and things like that. The third down part is a valid argument, but I feel like Pacheco. I like Pacheco. I like what he brings. And so maybe I'm a little bit biased in that way, but they're certainly not any better than middle of the road in this category either.
I get how Sam got there. If you're like, when Sam says Isaiah Pacheco's an average running back, right? Average starting running back, not average for everyone, but an average starter. So 16th best on his own. And then you say, okay, the rest is not good, which I don't know if you've got the reason, if you've got, the magic fairy dust on why Deneric Prince is going to be a star. He might be. I don't know. I don't think so. But like, I don't know how you could know much of anything about what's going on with any of the other guys. Right. So, but I'm with Jeff. I go C because I think Isaiah Pacheco is better than just an average starter. I don't think he's top 1 or 2 because he doesn't catch the ball. And so that dings him, but he averages 4.5 yards a carry. He runs with a physicality. I think there's a lot to like. I am optimistic he'll be a little bit better in the passing game this year. I mean, he's had 2 years in it. And if they are moving on from Jerick McKinnon, I'm assuming that they feel like someone's there. Part of this is also just Andy Reid makes the running back position go. Like, they've done a really nice job, whether it's Darrell Williams or Spencer Ware. They seem to be able to find guys that nobody else could do anything with and get productivity out of it. So I'm a little bit grading with them. Again, I don't think D+ is preposterous, but I'm a little bit grading on the expectation that they will coach them up. So
So where would you rank Pacheco? And let me just throw a couple Pacheco stats at you, because I just, like I said, I think he's an average running back, and then I think the rest of the group you have to ding him a full letter grade. Like, I had him at like B- or so, but like, and then the specific position I mentioned about third down back. But I'm interested in where you grade Pacheco to have him as an above average back, because like when you look at it, yards after contact per attempt, he's 21st. I think a lot of people would say Isaiah Pacheco's great at forcing missed tackles. He's 21st in the NFL at forcing missed tackles last year. I think people would say, well, he can give you some big runs. He's 25th in the league in 10+ yard carries last year. Like, I don't know in what area do we rank? Like, how do we get to where that's just running the ball. He produces almost nothing in the passing game. I'm struggling for how we get Isaiah Pacheco to a top 10 running back.
He leads the league in push-ups, Sam. That's why. That's right.
And by the way, a terrific 7th round pick. Incredible value for the 7th round.
Quote me those stats again.
So in 10+ yard carries last year.
Quantity of, not percentage of, right?
Quantity. He's 25th in the league. In yards after contact per attempt, so that is a per attempt basis, he is 21st in the league. He averages 3.04 yards after contact. Missed tackle forced, this is a total number. He's 23rd in the league in that.
How many times in 2 years of the regular season do you think he's carried the ball 20 times?
He's 22nd in carries.
Right.
So those total numbers are just like average based on what he was. The one that's per carry average, like he's not in the top 20.
Listen, I'm saying.
And again, he's producing. This is just running the ball. This is what he's best at.
How many running backs do you think are really good?
Well, I think that there's 20 guys better than him in that category.
My point is, listen. First of all, forced missed tackles and all that are highly subjective. Okay,
but my point is, this is what he does best. Like, I'm reading the stats from the areas to which Pacheco is most highly regarded, right?
But I think there's also a part of, like, what the difference is between Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Isaiah Pacheco can see, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire can't. Like, he runs to the holes. Like, I get it. Yes, you want a guy who can break tackles. Yes, you want somebody who can make somebody miss in a phone booth. But part of it is reading the offensive line and reading the blocking, and maybe it's because he's so much better than I thought he was going to be that I give him too much credit. I will offer that up. But number one, he really doesn't get that many touches.
Yeah.
They don't pound away. And I think there is something to be said for, Andy Reid really uses the running backs just to set up his throws.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said for, just getting opportunities, eventually you're going to wear them out. You're going to bust the big one. They don't really play that way. And I think he sees the holes pretty well. I think sometimes he's a little too fast to the hole, right? And sometimes he's not. He takes such choppy steps that you think, like, slow down, man. I think there is some time he could use a little breather to, like, just let things set up. But I think there is something to his power, and I think there is something to what he does to the rest of the team. He provides the physicality for the team. Even if he doesn't break the tackle, he makes a guy hurt when he gets up off the ground. And there's something to that. And I do think that they could use him more. If the idea was to get him ranked higher, you could use him more. And I think another team would use him. Like, if he ran for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he'd be 1,400 yards. And I think people would have a much
not behind that line.
But this line with a Steelers approach, he would have more yards. because
He reminds me of. Remember the guy the Patriots had back when in Brady's first run, Antoine Smith. He was this guy who wasn't a great runner. He was a big guy, but he just brought that presence of I'm going to be a banger in here. Or like Garrett Blunt is that kind of guy too. It's like sometimes you just have to have a guy who's going to put his head down and just punish people. I think if they had a shiftier, speedier, more elusive back, it would be a different kind of offense. It might be a detriment, to be honest with you. I just think he brings that element that they need to have to play the way they play.
I don't. I mean, I think you'd want a guy like that in on third down. I mean, like you look, I mentioned that his rushing numbers. I mean, you look at his contribution to the passing game, and now I'm on PFF looking at this.
Sam is going to wear out.
He's 36
in the
He's 36th in the league in yards per route run. Like
but I want to be clear. According to PFF,
the yards per route run is not like that. That's not a subjective stat. You run around or you don't run around.
I'm bringing up that you say according to PFF all the time, and PFF, I love them, and
that's a factual stat.
Let me finish my sentence. PFF, I love them, and I give credit to anybody that will put their name next to a grade, which they do at least as an organization. They don't as the individuals. But Eric Eager himself, when he worked there, not when he left, would say, listen, there's a lot of subjectivity and there's some things I don't think we do that well, right? So I like the PFF stats, and I'm happy to quote the PFF stats, like all of us, when they support our argument. But PFF is not the end-all, be-all, God's goddamn gift to what is and is not, right? And some other stuff, like the idea that Josh Williams is the 5th best corner and Leo Chenal is the 6th best linebacker is asinine. It is asinine. All you have to do is watch the limitations of them. So everybody who plays more gets dinged because they find a wart and best against best. When you get spotted in there and you get to come in and just cover the 4th best wideout all the time, you look better. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here. Jeff and I don't think you're even arguing your point. I just get tired of hearing PFF from anyone, anywhere, because they're not the end all be all. But Jeff and I, we're not saying statistically he's the best or he does everything the best. There is a physicality to what he does. There is a punch you in the mouth to what he does, which is important, which I want from a running back. And I think he gives that, and I think it's vitally important to this offense. And I do think that there's production. And I also agree with this comment, and then I'll shut up. I do agree with this comment. Where was it that here? It was right there at the bottom. Sorry. Matthew said Pacheco gets yards when it's needed.
Yeah, and Shaq makes free throws when he needs to. I do want to clarify that
by the way, that was a perfect comeback.
I totally agree with you on the grades. None of the stats I quoted were grades. Like the stats I quoted are objective stats. Like yards per route run.
Tackles missed is absolutely objective.
Well, the yards after contact is not.
Is subjective.
Yards after contact is objective.
The
yards per route run is.
I don't want to turn this into a PFF.
And by the way, PFF loves him as a running back, so the grades support you. I didn't quote the grades.
None of the ones you quoted.
I'm just now looking up the grades.
None of the ones you quoted did.
So now you want me to quote the grades?
No, I'm saying. I mean,
I don't quote the grades. I none of what I said about Isaiah Pacheco was.
But I even
this grading system that they
use. Yards after contact when a guy gets a hand on you. If he grabs your jersey a little bit, is that a yard after contact, or do you actually have to get a shoulder?
But why would why would that be detrimental to Isaiah Pacheco?
No, I'm just
however they graded is how they graded, and then it's like
you said that is not subjective, and I'm pointing out where it is. Almost everything about football is subjective. It's not baseball where the ball goes over the wall or it doesn't, where the ball is fair or it's foul. It's not like that in football.
But not. So it is. You're right that it is subjective. But if you do it the same way for everybody, it's the same grading scale.
No, because there's like 50 different guys grading. So the guy grading Isaiah Pacheco one game is not the same guy grading Derrick Henry. So it is not. It absolutely is not the same.
On performance, yes. I'm guessing you've got some guidelines on how to statistical add the stats for
I just gave you, listen, I've had these conversations in depth with people at PFF. Like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Okay, what is this? What is that? It is absolutely subjective. And I give all the credit in the world for anybody to do it because it's a bitch, right? I got to Nick Jacobs at 41 charts every play of every snap of the offensive line for the Chiefs because he loves offensive line play and he puts out grades and I love him. But it's still one guy's opinion. Right? Like it's
grades are
subjective.
Yes, grades
But
are
even-
subjective. Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Quarterback. They didn't do quarterback as a position. I want to grade it as a position, which is Mahomes and the backup. I'll go first A+, because not only is Mahomes badass, but Carson Wentz is about, I think, as good as you can get as a backup quarterback. Sam?
Yeah, I think Carson Wentz is the best backup quarterback they've had. And I think people underestimate the importance of that because they have needed two of the last, 4 years, they've needed a backup quarterback in the playoffs.
Yep.
The year before they needed, 5 years ago, they needed a quarterback to start 2 games. Having said that, like Patrick Mahomes could have Soren, Petro, and Chadiha as a backup, and I'd still give him an A+.
Okay, A+. Jeff?
A+.
Okay, there it is. And you agree on the Carson Wentz thing? I mean, I think they have needed the backup.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I feel like, we've had this conversation before about should they get somebody to develop or go with a veteran. And Andy Reid's, I think he's always going to go with a veteran. They got a pretty good one.
All right, let's go to the Chiefs defensive line. PFF gives them ranks them number 14 in the NFL. Sam, where'd you go here on the defensive line?
I think I've got him a little bit higher than that. I've got him at a B+, and I debated even like an A-. I just think Chris Jones is the very best at his position, and I think that when you've got the very best at that position, it can help the entire group out. So I'm really just bumping them up because look, I mean, last year Karlaftis was 18th in the NFL in pressures. Mike Dana was 50th. Like your second edge rusher being 50th is not a bad thing. There's 60. It goes to 64 with number 2. So like they're fine at that position and really, really good at one spot at defensive tackle. So I debated between A- and B+ and gave him a B+. I think they're a top 10 group.
Jeff?
Gave him a B. Chris Jones is a game wrecker. Karlaftis is okay. Dana's okay, but I think if Amenahue was in the mix, I might be a little bit better with the grade, maybe a B+. But yeah, Chris Jones he's an A+ player, and so the other guys just kind of bring it down a little bit. But I think 14th. I agree with PFF has them. Like they're about a B- group.
Yeah, I've got them at a B+. I'm higher on Karlaftis than you are, Sam. Not that you're down on him, but I do think there's more there, and I think he's another guy that's going to take another step this year because I think he's a work ethic guy, and I think you're going to see technique step in. And I truly believe there's a 14-15 sack season coming from that guy. It's not just off raw ability, but just the way sacks kind of come in bunches. But I do think that the work ethic is going to be there, and we're going to see a good season from him. So I give him a higher grade, but I'm a little worried. Nobody mentioned Mike Pennell. I don't understand why, but Mike Pennell, the wrecking crew in the middle, obviously helps out on the tackle spot. But Nadi is a liability.
And not much depth.
And I actually expect him to go out and try to sign a defensive end. I think there could be who was the Clemson guy from the Bengals and Seahawks?
You're talking about Carlos Dunlap.
I think there could be a Carlos Dunlap signing coming, something like that at some point. But I give him a B+. I think they're a B+, and they got a chance to. If Michael Dana plays, if it was a matter of using him when Amenahue got there, he kind of quit getting sacks, but he was doing pretty good before that. When Amenahue comes back, I think he can go A-, but I don't know if Amenahue's going to be back. So I go B+ on that. All right, linebacker. The linebacking unit ranked 12th by PFF. What'd you give him, Sam?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit higher than what I would have them. I've got them at a B, so I think they're more like middle of the pack, somewhere in that like 14 to 17 range. Okay. I think they're really good at starters. I do worry about the depth.
You worry about the depth. Okay, Jeff?
How is Sam doing the math here? Because to me, 12th is a B. Like it's not like an A. I think I have them at a B too. For different I feel like they're underrated. I feel like Nick Bolton is. We just saw whoever, I forget. We named so many different groups on the rankings, but he was ranked 5 and was it ESPN or was it ESPN in the group? ESPN's ranking. He was 5.
Nick Bolton was ranked 5. Yes.
5. Okay, so they're giving him some love. And again, I keep beating the drum for Drew Tranquil. He had a good year last year. I think he will continue to progress and make a name for himself. The depth is an issue, but I feel like those two guys are smart, and Tranquil's versatility makes them, a pretty good mix.
What letter grade did you have for him though?
B. He had a B. Same letter grade you did. right? But it sounds better. You're a negative.
Yeah.
I look forward to all the comments in the chat room talking about how Sam hates the Chiefs. It should be coming in 3, 2, 1. Jameson to say, wouldn't middle of the pack be C?
I mean, most kids in your class, like there's very few apps. This is a bell curve situation.
Yeah.
This is not a thing where there's as many apps
16
as
is
A.
C, right? 12 is like a B. 12 is
Stunning. I'm going to go B+. I'll be the high water guy on this. And I do think Leo Chenal is a very productive player when used. I'm very interested to see what he does if he's got to play more. I don't think he's going to play that much more. I think it's going to be, a lot of Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill, and then him being spotted. Against the Ravens, he'll play more. I think they want to get back to running the ball. So on the opener, you're going to see him more. But I'm intrigued by what he can be, getting more reps. But I think Nick Bolton is underrated. I think 5 is great. I'm fine with that. But I think the rest of the NFL, he's underrated. I think he's underrated on this podcast by you guys. More so Sam than Jeff. And I think Drew Tranquill is a perfect utility guy to have in there. I think the 3 of them are an outstanding group to have. The depth is what keeps me from going up higher. But I think there's no doubt that this defense, yes, it got better with Steve Spagnuolo. It also got better when Anthony Hitchens left and Nick Bolton started playing, right? And it got better. Every linebacker that they've changed out, they've gotten better. It's a good group at that linebacker spot, and they make plays. And missed tackles are not something we talk about every Monday on the program, right? And we used to talk about
because it's just too subjective. Why would we talk about missed tackles? Jeff, I mentioned this stat to Soren on his show earlier today. They're playing Drew Tranquill and Nick Bolton together this year. Yeah. Of their top 34 individual combinations of like these 11 guys were on the field, their top 34 used combinations on defense last year, none of them included those 2 guys playing together. Like that's how infrequently they were on the same field because of Nick Bolton's injury. It's going to be interesting to see those 2 guys play together for in such significant way for the first time, really.
Yeah, I agree. All right, defensive backs. The PFF folks ranked them 9th in the secondary. No more L'Jarius Sneed. What letter grade did you give him, Sam?
I still gave him a B+, even without L'Jarius Sneed. I think McDuffie, I do think he's an all-pro caliber player. I've mentioned on this podcast before, I think Brian Cook takes a step up this year. I think that Shamari Connor can play the slot. I think Justin Reed's got an above average safety. And I do think they will figure out the part that we mentioned on the last podcast with Spags. Like they do need to figure out who's the second cornerback. I think they have enough options to where even if it's a motivational thing and you rotate those guys, I think they'll be serviceable there, and they're above average to really good everywhere else in the secondary. So I gave him a B+.
Okay. Jeff.
I went B. Love McDuffie. I like Justin Reed. Cook coming back from injury makes me a little bit nervous. Shamari Connor's got some potential, but I want to see him do more. And then I'm probably more dealing with recency bias based on what we talked about with the corner situation and how Spagnuolo was assessing it so early in camp that if they had a guy there that they really liked by this point, I'd probably go a little higher to B+, but I'm sticking with B for now.
I'm at a B+. I think McDuffie's nails, and I think they have great depth, and I don't think there's a weakness out there. I think they've got depth.
No one just said there's a weakness. Number 2 corner. I don't know the number 2 corner is going to be.
I don't think it's a weakness. I don't think it's as good as last year, but I think that was who has that on a regular basis year in, year out. Where you've got a guy who doesn't give up a touchdown all regular season, and he's not the all-pro. The guy next to him is the all-pro. Like that's like grading him like that. That's again where are you grading him against what they were last year? You're grading him down. This is still how many secondaries would you trade for this one?
Oh,
I thought 9th was about right. I thought 9th seemed like a good spot for him.
I think it's low. I almost went A-, but I felt I might be homerish if I did. I think it's probably low.
Would I take? Yeah, there's probably a few. I'd probably take Ravens. I would take Dallas.
Jets.
Jets. Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to sit down and go through it, but
Patrick got a good secondary.
I think the depth of this secondary is outstanding. Like, I think Jaden Hicks is going to be a player. I think
they got bodies. I don't know if they got players. How many players they got?
I think the question is Kamal Hadden and Nick Jones anything? But if Taylor's back, Josh Williams, Trent McDuffie, and if Najee Johnson's healthy, then I think you've got to. I'm counting on Najee Johnson being good enough, being as good as Taylor and Josh Williams, and they keep putting him in front of them. So I'm that is a leap of faith because I have not seen him play really much corner at all. So that is a complete leap of faith. And so grading him down, if you're like, what has Najee Johnson ever done? Nothing, almost nothing. Played special teams. That's all he's done. I am basing it on where he ranks against other guys. If that's the case, then they're as deep as anybody. And
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Now, if it's not, then we're backing up the bus, right? It's as simple as that. All right, that's going to do it. Don't forget, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com, or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, solving parking lot problems since 1994. That's 30 years, Kansas City's best. One contractor, all things problem, and our friends at Northland Injury Law. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. Accidents, work accidents, car accidents, falls. They handle them all. They've been serving Kansas City for 40 years. And, of course, voted #1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT, HURT to 22222. You can call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. Make sure you tell them you heard about them on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. They're Kansas City's best. See for yourself. Text HURT to 22222. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red.